it's about getting into schools and talking to young people, because, you know, I know that people can change. And it's about talking to people and getting them to understand and perhaps step back from violence and prejudice and whatever. And we just need to work together and keep on the good fight there.
Absolutely. Hey there, guys. We are ecstatically happy to announce that we are associated with the Sophie Lancaster Foundation.
The times are changing, and with the unfortunate death of Sophie, those changes have made a massive impact for the future. If Sophie was with us still today, I can guarantee what you are doing will still be reaching so many lives of young teenagers, young adults, and those who wish to be as different as possible. So thank you very much.
To find out more about this incredible foundation and all the work they do, and more importantly, how you can help, head on over to www.sophielancasterfoundation.com.
Hi, my name is Pierre Bohanna, and I'm talking to Jamie and Tom here on their incredible podcast. Enjoy.
Oh, hey guys. It's not one hand, it's not two hands, it's double wave time. Welcome to the Chronicles of Podcast, only the 28th edition. Double wave, come on, double wave with us, let's do it. It's Jamie.
Hello.
I believe it's the Chronicles of Pierre Bohanna, is that right?
You're damn skippy, it is.
Oh, we're going to Australia now, mate. Oh, Skip, I love that. I love that show. It's absolutely fucking incredible. Yeah, so, shall we?
Yes, because my arms are going to fall off in a minute.
Okay, let's go, boys. And now we shall get to the yes, there is resistance.
Or the
Welcome,
Pierre de Resistance.
Oh, get out, you! The door is over there. Welcome to the Chronicles of Pierre Bohanna. Pierre is a prop master, prop designer, costume designer for loads of Hollywood movies, such as Jamie, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, including the Fantastic Beasts series, James Bond, Star Wars, a few movies called Black Widow, The Batman, and upcoming The Flash as well, plus many, many more.
This man has worked on so many incredible things. I cannot encourage you all, before or after you listen to this interview, go to Pierre's website, because if you click on the movies, it shows you pictures of what he's worked on. And it is incredible, the things this man has done. And the amount of amazing I so want to go, tell me all about The Flash, tell me all about Batman right now. It's just incredible.
Well, I think what we're planning to do is when the Batman and the Flash have been released and are out, we're going to have him back, because I know Jamie is literally itching his own arsehole, desperate to get him back to find out all about it.
I feel like we could have Pierre back on and do 7 side series, let's talk about Harry Potter, let's talk about superhero movies, let's talk about Star Wars. Yeah, this man's done so much. We barely scratched the surface in this almost hour and a half.
I agree. I also think Pierre holds the record for the longest answer ever given after one single question.
I concur. I definitely concur.
Literally, this man is funny as fuck. He's so hilarious. And the stories are wonderful. And when you find out who his dad is, it just gets even more wonderful. So we're just like, oh, really? The stories are insane. So Pierre is definitely going to come back on for a round 2. I know we've promised a lot of round 2s. Maybe we'll have a month of round 2s at some point. But you need to go on, like Jamie said, go on Pierre's website and go on his IMDb to check out what the man has done, because I trust you. Trust me as I say this, ladies and gentlemen, you will not be disappointed in what he has done.
Not at all.
So, without that ado that we could not be further from, Jamie.
Yes, sir.
Any finale words?
No, just Mr. Bohanna. Thank you very, very much. This was so much fun. Just people enjoy this one. It's wonderful.
And if you're expecting a Frenchman, you are going to be bitterly disappointed. Ladies and gentlemen, here we... Ladies and gentlemen, interviewing this week, he is a prop designer, prop maker, costume designer for such movie franchises as The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, including Fantastic Beasts, James Bond, Star Wars, Black Widow, The Flash, The Batman. I could go on, but I won't. It's Pierre Bohanna.
I'll turn my phone off because my mother will call, of course.
Ladies and gents, today we welcome into the chateau a man who has used his skills to literally bring magic to some of the biggest films in Hollywood, creating and designing props and special effects for projects like Star Wars Rogue One, Edge of Tomorrow, and including the up-and-coming Flash and Batman movies. He's probably best known for his work on every single movie in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you the real-life Ollivander himself, Pierre Bohanna. Did I say your surname right?
You did. Top marks. Already you're on fire. Well done.
I meant to ask before we started and I forgot, so I'm glad I nailed it.
No, I've had some really weird sayings on it, including Bohammer, spelled in 2 words. And of course the banana, which is constant. My father got constantly called banana for some reason.
Why? I mean, it's not even close.
No. Those good old days, hey.
That's like someone called me James. So my name's Tom. Like, all right.
I can't explain what other people are like. There you go.
I like Bohammer though. We should just change it to that.
Bohammer. And it was BOW space HAMMER.
Sounds like a superhero, to be fair.
It does.
Bohammer.
I haven't got the ego to carry it. That's the only problem.
Right. Pierre, how was your pandemic season?
I always feel very guilty about the pandemic season because obviously there was lots of people who had serious problems and had a really tough time doing it. For me, it was like heaven. I never experienced anything quite so pleasant as having to do nothing for 5 months. I realised I hadn't stopped probably in about 25 years. And myself and my wife, it's gone to self in the house, and only got up when the birds woke us up, so to speak, and just indulged in the peace of it all. Really, it was just fantastic. But I feel immensely guilty because I have friends who had kids who were homeschooling and things like that, all going mad. They couldn't get out of the house. It's just like it was obviously a lot of people had a horrible time, but it was. I never expected. I thought I'd be bored within 2 or 3 weeks, but it was like a balm, and I miss it terribly. I can't wait for another person in some far-flung corner to do something atrocious to an animal so we can all have another 6 months off.
But I mean, because obviously I've been working non-stop for however many years. It must have been just stunning just to be able to go, I can recharge the batteries. Absolutely.
I mean, it's very difficult to complain about something when you're in an industry that has gone from, such a relatively small industry, just numerically, the amount of people involved in films, the amount of films made, etc., to be in this period where it's enormous. Even after COVID, it's bigger. It just gets bigger and bigger. I mean, they're building studios everywhere. I cannot get hold of I cannot. Everybody, every sort of person similar to me, that's sort of in a managerial position, is struggling to get skilled staff. I mean, it's a fantastic problem. It's amazing, but it's exhausting. It's just exhausting, and it was a weird to sort of come away and just stop and reboot. And to be honest, kind of think about what the important things are certainly in a professional sense, what the important things are to maintain the reasons for doing it, if you see what I'm saying. So it's certainly trying to desperately try and refocus, but it's very hard when you're swimming up against the tide of a river that's flowing so fast. Anyway, just do what I've always done, just keep saying yes and see where life takes you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So take us all the way back to young Master Bohanna. What was your original plan for life like growing up? Was it always engineering and building, etc., or was it something completely different?
But obviously, what I wanted to be was a vet. That makes total sense. Because I used to love animals, and I've always loved animals, and ever since. But by the time I was sort of 9 or 10, I realised that you had to be intelligent and be qualified to be a vet. And so I had friends who were farmers to say that you have to be intelligent. You can't be intelligent or qualified to be a farmer as well, just as much so. So I that's how I started in this industry, by deciding to do something and ending up doing something completely different. So I went to school in my primary school was in where I grew up, in a place called Goring-on-Thames out in Oxfordshire, and then I went to boarding school in the Cotswolds, a place called Burford, which had a big kind of state school, but it was originally an old grammar school, and it still kept that going as a boarding house. And the reason I went there was because I was into animals. It actually had a farm. I am the proud owner of a O-level. Not many people know what O-levels are in agriculture, among many other O-levels that I could count on half of one hand. So it was just fantastic, and I treasure my those years. Actually, I mean, a lot of people had mixed experiences with school. I was very lucky. I had I think life enforcing experience as far as the people I was with and the friends I made, and so it was a good sounding. And I think certainly, even looking back now, the part of being thrown into, which is what happens with this job, of throwing into situations where you have to work your way through, and that's situations that need to be resolved with people, not so much. I mean, it's problems, practical problems, but filmmaking is just getting a load of people together and taking on something that no one's done before and trying figuring it out. So it is about debate, opinion. Lots of people have different artistic opinions, etc., etc. And so being stuck in a room with 15 or 20 other sweaty teenagers, all arguing about, so they're going through different protocols and learning how to get away with smoking and drinking without getting caught, is a perfect education for working in this industry and becoming high-end managers, as you can tell with Boris. I treasure that period very much. But when that eventually came to the end, I'm not strongly academic, as most of the people, again, in the industry are, and I did my O-levels and A-levels, and I was just exhausted with that system. So originally my thought was to take a year out and think about what I want to do, college, university, or whatever, and decide what I wanted to do, and just go out and just take a year out. And my parents had split up when I was about 10 years old, and my father had, although I used to see him regularly, I hadn't spent, because of boarding school and everything else, I hadn't spent an enormous amount of time in it. And he had just moved down to the south coast, to just outside of Bournemouth, where he had taken on a workshop and was doing a car project for an American guy that he had promised to make a car for. My father originally was a car designer. That's how he started off. He worked in the motor racing industry in the 60s. And he'd worked for people like Lola's and Ford Penske's, Alaman, lots of it was similar to this industry, jobbing around. He specialized in car bodies, he and GRP and that sort of blooming area of that sort of aerodynamics, etc. But while he was working there, he when he was at Alaman, at Ford Penske's, they had built the running gear for Chitty Bang Bangs, and he'd met an art director there called Peter Lamont. Several years later, in the mid 70s, he'd left motor racing. He'd done a couple of car projects. One that had been brought by a company called ACs, and it was their last production model. I proudly own one now, because they only built about 100 of them, but it's the only production car my father ever built. He did kit cars and things, but not only that one. He bumped into Peter in the mid-70s, and Peter had just started on a film and said, "Oh God, I need some vehicles doing and some sort of big prop pieces, etc." And it seemed to, seeing what you'd done, you sort of think you could well help us with. My dad, being my dad, just said, "Yeah, I'll give you a hand." And the film was Aspire Love Me, so he ended up making vehicles for that and sidecars, and there's a big globe in the I don't know if you know the film, there's a super tanker that grabs submarines, basically. It stalls submarines in it, and there's this big control room where there's this giant globe that mold also was used to make Zen from Blake 7, which my dad did all the cockpits and stuff for that.
Nice.
And amongst other things. So he kind of fell into the industry there, and he was in that for about 10, 12 years, and he ended up going out to, he was a model shop supervisor on June, and he started in the UK at Pinewood, and then went out to Mexico, where they did most of the main filming. He was out there for 12 months. So my stepmother and my stepsisters and stepbrother went out there for 6 months and spent 6 months out there. Excuse me. And so the studios, there's a big studios in Mexico City that they were working at. And obviously the main producer there was Dino De Laurentiis, and he also did the Conan films, and they were filming the second Conan Destroyer, at the same time as they were doing Dune out there. And my stepbrother went to a school, it was actually in the studio, right on the border of the studio, just like a European school. And he used to finish, and he used to go to my dad's workshop at the end of every day, and just been around for a couple of hours till my dad was ready, and then they'd go home. And Luke, he went off and he made some 2 or 3 other friends, similar kids, some local kids, etc. And they used to disappear. And one day, my dad said he walked into the workshop with this 7'2" black guy in a black sheepskin and a sword, who'd been playing football with. And this is we just walked into the workshop with this guy. Just want to introduce you to my new friend Wilt, and my dad sort of went up to like this, and hello, Mr. Wilt, nice to meet you. And Wilt, being Wilt, he was the lead baddie in the Conan films, and he was a very famous American basketball player called Wilt Chamberlain, and he was, first of all, amazing with kids. He always sort of befriend people, and he saw these boys playing football, and he just basically went and joined in because he loved sports. So they played football for 2 or 3 days, and then Luke said, "Do you want to come and meet my dad?" So he came and introduced my dad. So they met, and then within a few days they were going out for dinner and having a nice, just becoming friends, basically. And my dad obviously oiled by the general conveniences of the alcohol that was probably flowing very strongly at the point. Was talking about the fact that he used to make cars, and Wilt said, the trouble I have is that I'm 7'2", so he called himself the third shortest member of the Harlem Globetrotters. And he said that he said, I can't fit in my Lamborghini. It's a real problem, which is true. And he couldn't fit in his Lamborghini because it was made for Italians, and they have legs that, they have real duck disease, don't they, Italians? So he said, I have a real struggle with that. He said, I've had my Bentley pushed back, and so my dad said, I'll build you a car. I'll just make you a car that you fit in. I'll tell you, build you a So for the next 15 years, he was building this bloody car that became a total weight round. At the beginning, it was beautiful. It was a two-seater mid-engine. It was a beautiful design. But my dad, he overpromised and undersold and underbudgeted, and so it took him a long time to finish it. But Wilt, bless him, kept it going. So the reason I'm telling all this story is that at the time he moved down to Bournemouth, got a workshop, and started building this car for Wilt. So he said, well, look, why don't you come down and spend a bit of time down on the south coast? A lovely place to spend summer. You can come and work for me, just doing sort of apprentice job, and we see how we go from there. And so I went down on the first day, sort of meeting this guy Paul, who was also the same age as me. So we were both the apprentices. He's two things. He's still one of my closest friends, and he's also married to my stepsister. So the two of us started working away for my dad with a load of other guys, started building this car. And within a month, I knew I'm never going back to. I learned more in the first 4 or 5 months that I felt I'd learned in 3 years, and it was so visceral, and I just found something that I just fell in love with. Just the process of making things and making something like that, being involved and seeing it grow and learning. So the Wilt's car project inevitably coughed and started and stopped and started after about 6 months. Wilt turned the cash on and off. So we started building a boat. We did a boat project, a dory project. Then we did I went and did an apprenticeship with a boat builder out down there. We did some offshore powerboat racing boats. In the meantime, I was sort of crewing on the sailing boats, etc. So I had a really, I ended up spending like 2 or 3 years down there, and learning. And then eventually I moved up to London. I started working for Moore Farrell's or signwriting department, and we were doing massive hoardings, big 3D hoardings. We did like giant mobile phones and whiskey bottles. I was always going up to Edinburgh and screwing massive perspex vacuum formings onto the side of buildings in the middle of winter, getting lost in Yorkshire on the Dales and broken down vans and God knows what else. I think I'll never be lost again, never be found again. So it just, and again, constantly learning. And then one of my dad's friends phoned me up on a Friday and said, I'm working for this company in Putney, and we got this rush job, we've got to get it ready for Monday. Are you up for working for the weekend? And so I'll come and do that. So I went and worked from the weekend, and on the Monday I got a phone call from the managing director of the company, Julia Sherborne, her name was an amazing woman. He ran this company called Adspotels, and Adspotels was one of the first properly independent model-making effects companies in London, and they did a lot of TV commercials. That was the mainstay, a bit of telly, tiny bit of film, but mostly it was all TV commercials. It was the time of the 80s. He started in the early 80s. He'd worked for Doctor Who before. It was Alistair. He'd been a sculptor and things like that. And he just a boom of TV commercials during the 80s. So I sort of caught the sort of back end of that, sort of late 80s, when I worked there, and that's really my first job in the media. But again, you just learn so much. I mean, it's so much that you don't see nowadays of tabletop effects and doing Castrol GTX commercials where the oil runs down just drives. We had these turntables, these sort of gimbaled tables that you'd actually steer the oil drop around and things like that. Sort of loads of, and just really clever people, really thinking chocolate commercials, tons and tons of chocolate commercials. Just seeing, used to do it with glycerine and emulsion pigments. And one of the commercials we did was a big British commercial for Ireland that when the guy who ran it got the scale completely wrong. You should chocolate commercials. You should do about 2.5 to 3 times up scale to allow the sort of syrup to look like melted chocolate. He'd gone completely berserk, gone like 10 or 12 times. So we had these massive blocks of chocolate, these colossal header tanks full of glycerin. I remember walking to this motion control station in Holborn, and everything from the sort of a meter down was brown and sticky, and there was wasps everywhere. Oh, just like full of wasps, and the stink of when you've got it's like this glycerin, it's just like, oh my god, yeah. I don't think you got paid for that commercial. So my first experience of proper cock-ups, proper good cock-ups. There's a couple of other stories which you got time for stories? Do you like a bit of stories?
Yeah, go for it.
Time,
so by all means.
There was another one we're working for there. He because he went bust 2 or 3 times, mostly from being sued, basically. There was I'm not selling this like a great learning, but it was a great learning. Really, he did many wonderful things, very good things. But of course, that time was a great, it's all risk. It's all really a risk that people took chances, and sometimes people made mistakes. But he made these snowmen. He got commissioned by HMV for their flagship store on Tottenham Court Road to make these snow machines. So they're hung in the window, and there was snow dropping down all day long. Classic Christmas. And there was these hoppers that collected it and took it back up into the machine. There was a cycle, this constant cycle. And this one senior modeler who had this chemistry idea of doing it with fans, hadn't been done that way. Oh yeah, it's fine. He did tests, and supposedly didn't. They put them in, and they just basically didn't work. They clog after about half an hour. The hoppers at the bottom would clog, and then the fan would jam and all that kind of thing. So we were constantly having to go out, and eventually there's a cycle of us young lads that were constantly up there, emptying out the hopper, just redistributing, getting the fans to work, and just constantly getting these bloody things to work. And one of my associate trainees, Irish lad called Jason, went up there on Christmas Eve at 6 o'clock in the morning, ready for the store to open for its Christmas Eve day. Went to the Tottenham Court Road, and there was about 10 fire engines, all down the end. He walked up to the store. The main plate window, which was enormous, had a massive crack in it. The fire brigade had gone in there, guns blazing, smashed in the door. One of the fans had jammed, hadn't gone off and caught fire. So the fire brigade flooded the basement of HMV and basically closed it down on Christmas Eve.
No,
their biggest day of the year. Oh my god! And he said he walked up to one of the security guards, and the security guards, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, I'm from Botels. And he goes, he went down and he goes, if I was you, I'd fuck off. So he ran for the hills. Anyway, so I think it was massively the case of that. But yeah, I mean, but there was some, just some amazing stuff. Say some of the food stuff we did was incredible. Some of the food commercials and the chocolate commercials were beautiful, and really clever people. I started really getting exposed to a generation of guys and girls that were very skilled, and it's a way of thinking. Really, it had this amazing puzzle, this puzzle way of puzzling out the how to figure stuff out, and that was really interesting to get exposed and starting to be asked to do it myself and figure out stuff. But inevitably, I got offered a job at Spitting Image, so I I left there and started working at Spitting Image, which was my first sort of TV, and when I went properly freelance for the first time. And I did a couple of series there and started doing TV stuff, and then just became a jobbing model maker really. But Spitting Image was fantastic because we used to have to. I worked from Wednesday to Sunday. I don't know do you remember the original series? I don't know how.
Yeah, we've spoke to one of the cast on here on the show. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had Steve Nallen on the show.
Oh, wonderful! Did you see him, or was it just his hand? Did you? It's amazing. That was amazing television making. Really clever because of the satire, because of the writers, and we used to be making filming right up to 8 o'clock, and it used to go out at 10. So it was wow. Cutting edge satire really. And they had this amazing system. The first I did the last 2 series they did up at Central at Birmingham before they moved it down to London, and they had this amazing 2-stage system, so they're always filming all the time, and they had 3 sets on each stage, and they were either building, striking, or ready to film on, or filming on one of those sets. So they were just like back and forth, and they had racks and racks of puppets. They had all there, but it's just big cages full of them, and you could just pick one up and play with them. So you could play with Maggie Thatcher or Tebbit or whoever you wanted, or Reagan, or the most favourite one was a cat. If you ever watch reruns, there's a cat that's constantly in it all the time, and the puppeteers used to love it, and it was great. Just playing around with this mad cat. So it's funny always seeing that. Just it's always licking its bum or something, playing the cello. Yeah. And then so I was doing prop making for that. I was making lots of props, working to buy as the production buyer and the set decorator's assistant, which is just incredible. I mean, I had to. You got 15 minutes to make this. You'd have to make it, and you just run around gluing, and so it got a real good pace to it. I remember another little just a telltale story. On Saturday, I used to have to drive up to Birmingham on the Sunday. Spend work up there on the Sunday. Most of the rest of the week was in London, but on a Sunday morning, I got the founder of the production bar gave me £1,000, and she said, go to Boots, go to the chemist at Boots, and buy as many condoms as you possibly can. With a grand. Yeah, exactly. And so I ran to go, and I was only young, and of course I got there, and the lady behind the counter was in her late 60s, 70s, blue rinse, thick glasses, and just, can I help you, love? And I said, yes. How many condoms have you got? And she just never lost eye contact from me. She just leant back. She opened this drawer behind her, which was like on this bed drawer, just full. And I go, yes, I'll have all those, please. She stopped for a second, didn't stop looking at me, and then just started never just waiting for me to run off. And I've just 4 or 5 massive carrier bags with condoms out that we filled with helium and made a whole set out.
That's amazing.
For some reason. It was just her. She just cold and silent and just like, yeah, what you do for a living, eh? So then and then I really from there I started doing it, went back into commercial TV, and I was working for another company there, and through that company I started films. I think I started working on, I think I did little bits and bobs. I mean, I did little bits and bobs when my dad was working on. I worked on I did work experience on The View to a Kill. I remember as a kid rubbing down a bloody coffin from Moonraker and things like that.
Wow.
But the first proper grown-up film was Judge Dredd. I think that's right. Probably right. Yeah, Judge Dredd, a Stallone one, which is amazing because I loved the comics. I thought the comics were just fantastic, wonderful. It's wonderful. It was a wonderful European kind of view of America, and it's just of that how it could go. And just just brilliant, so imaginative. I wish they've done good films, so they've never. Rebellion, who own it now, hopefully they're gonna do something really good with it, because it's still prime. But still some of the best prop making and some of the best creatures I've ever seen. I mean, Mean Machine, Chris, I've forgotten the guy's last name who built him. It was just flabbergastingly good. I mean, just amazing. And you see it like that, it's gone, but it's probably still one of the most impressive things. But one of my favorite things ever was also from that film, and that was the ABB robots. Robbie Scott, who built those, did an amazing. They did do a walking one they didn't really use, but again, desperately underused, but beautiful. And the thing was that we were all really into the subject, so we all were all just reveling in the opportunity of doing a film like that. And it's funny because there was some guys that I work with now, Toby, who I work with now, who I met on that film, who's my number 2 on. He's working, just saw him this morning on the Meg. And again, very close friend, incredible model maker, and professional. But I met him on Dread, and we all came with a certain passion for it, a certain wanting for it. So we went. So started to sort of meet the cornerstones of my professional life, really, I think, as far as what I do now, I think. And then from that, I did some giant telephones, I think, and then some other bits and bobs commercial, and then went back and did worked on Phantom Menace. So
yes,
off the strength of that, I got asked by Taitiga to go and join that, and I was sort of, again, Toby, who I just mentioned now, he started, and the prop shop was run by a guy called Oliver Hodge, who had been on Dread. We hadn't really, we met and talked, but not really. But he's fantastic prop maker. And then again, just walking into a workshop, and there was probably about 20 of us in there eventually, and it was a golden time for us. Just an absolutely amazing experience. Phantom Menace. I mean,
yeah. I wanted to ask about Phantom Menace, because you'd worked on Anakin's pod race, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So that was my first job. Was as
what
usual.
First job, man.
Well, I said, Ollie said, because I hadn't worked with Ollie or for Ollie. He'd done the bikes, and I've been doing interiors of spaceships on Dread. So Ollie said, "Oh, well, look, I've got this pod race." I said, "It's fine, but one thing I'm not very good at is welding." So he said, "Oh, that's great. Okay." So my first job was welding handlebars. So it's just like, all right, okay, I'll get you. I'll be finishing the end of this week. But yeah, so I did all the he has these weird handlebars and lots of all the dressing around the cockpit and all that kind of thing. And we did help Jim out on the baddies. I've forgotten the guy's name now. He was a long time ago.
Zabulba.
Zabulba. That's it. Well done. Thank you. His pod racer as well. But again, brilliant. I mean, conceptually, such a great idea. Really, it is great. Good parts of the film.
Just because that's one thing I love. The Phantom Menace gets a lot of stick from a lot of fans, but everyone goes to that pod racing scene, though. That pod racing scene, no one can fault the pod racing scene.
No. Well, it was lots of imaginative things, as they always are. I think obviously it was the first film that George had full, proper control of as far as Star Wars is concerned, and so he obviously wanted to use ILM as much as possible. There was a big push on that, and I think there was choices and elements of it, and he's I can't believe I'm saying that he's not a great director. He's a great conceptual guy. He's great, he's great an accountant. He's a very good accountant. but there's aspects of him conceptually, and I think he'd say that himself, really. But but how do you steer someone like George? He has all the toys. Jar Jar, which even at the time we were like, all right, okay, well but it was, to defend George slightly about that, he said, well, it's a film for 11-year-olds. So he was aiming, but I think they so that was really pandering more to that, which is fair enough. It's not for 52-year-old men as we all are now, but at the time, but anyway, so it was funny, and it was I think it was quite a tough film to make as far as the actors were concerned. The script was tough. I remember Ty bringing Ewan around the workshops right at the beginning, and Ewan was so excited. He came talking to us all. He was just like a dog with two tails. He was so motivated. And then seeing him filming 4 months later, I've already been in front of a green screen for 2 months. He was just, it was quite brutal. I think it was very difficult to get that passion going.
I can imagine.
But anyway, it's it was a fantastic film to work on. We had a ball, an absolute ball, because they still, there was still, as much as there was a lot of digital effect, the film was still made in the manner that the originals were, and so there was a lot of. Nowadays, so much stuff is very refined in how key props are designed and developed and thought about. Everyone has an opinion. A lot of stuff we were doing then, we were just like, we need lightsabers, we need, everybody stop and make a pair of binoculars for a day and things like that, and we just all get very competitive and we were allowed to put a lot into those props, our own ideas and our own principles. And that was a joy, an absolute joy. I mean, yeah. Toby made Ty came up to him one day and said to Toby, we need an intercom for Liam. He's doing a scene and he needs to get an intercom and talk to him. He goes, all right, when they're shooting that, and you go, no, they're shooting it now. We need an intercom now. So Toby was just like, and he's brilliant at just pulling it out of. He found some bits and bobs. He found, basically, it was a Wilkinson lady shave handle. So it was a wet shave handle. It was weird. It was very tongue. It was like a long tongue thing. And he had the shave bit. He took the blades out of the, and he stuck a load of widgets on the top. So it looks like it's got all this architecture in there. It's painted it all up in the brownie grungy tone. Now, 10 minutes later, they had an intercom, and you see it in the film.
That's amazing.
Toby phoned me about a year and a half later, and he goes, have you been to Woolworths? I go, Woolworths still in it. And I go, I'm probably going in the weekend. And he goes, just go and have a look at some of the Star Wars stuff. So I went and had a look at the Star Wars stuff. I'm walking down the queue, and there's little models and things like that. And there's a toy of his intercom. And it's even got the wiggly line that was in on the handle of the lady shave. It's just like, I can see one of those across the room. I'll call that one's not brown, it's pink, but it's
That's
yes. So it's funny how it goes. But yeah, had a ball, an absolute ball, and also met more colleagues and close friends I have now that sort of our generation really started from that. And I know all of us that work on that were still look back on those days as very, very special sort of time in our careers, really.
So as I said at the start of this, you've worked on some huge movies. Your IMDb is like a nerd's wet dream. It's just incredible. But how do you land like such huge projects? Did the company, like the productions, approach you, or do you have to like go apply to work on these projects?
No, I'm well prepared to beg. I've got no problem with begging. But it is a series of. It's a series of steps. It really is. And what I was talking about earlier about, Phantom, I went off and did some smaller films with Ollie, and you get to meet. And the film industry is lovely because it's a very communal thing, and people notice you, and if you do well, then they ask you back, and that certainly happens within a prop crew. And then sometimes another prop master or something, or a designer or whatever, will see you and discuss. So you get debated and pushed around that way. So doors open and shut in that way. And I think it's just I'm only half jest when I say I just say yes to everything, because I do, because that's how you got your next job, really. And the films are shorter than even Phantom Menace we were talking about. We're only on it for, I think Toby was on it at the beginning and finished right at the end, and he did 6 months, and that was just like unheard of amount of time. But nowadays, if we're on most films, if you're doing it for 12 months, that's a fairly straightforward. So they were just the scale of them was just smaller. And a lot of films we did, I did a film called Virtual Sexuality, which got big credit for. It was only like 3 weeks work. I can't believe the amount of work we did in it at the time, but I did it with Ollie and things like that. And so you kind of, and through that you meet people that ask you to do things. I mean, it's I did Titanic. I ran the prop making on Titanic. And I met Neil, who I'd met before weirdly as a kid. Neil Lamont, who's Peter Lamont's son, and through that, the old man and myself is the only Titanic and The World's Not Enough and Chamber of Secrets. Weirdly, is the only 3 films I ever did with my dad. Titanic was very much his gig. World's Not Enough was very much the both of us put together by Neil, actually, and then Potter was very much my gig that my dad came and worked on. So it's kind of you just say yes to things and see how it goes, and get asked by different people to do different jobs. So you can, especially with what I do, because everything is project based. So sometimes I am making props for science fiction. Sometimes you're making props for something like Potter, which is a period thing, or something, specialized costumes. It's all about development, really, and coming along with the processes that you can, and ideas to be able to do it, really. So, and that's constant. I'm constantly pitching, really, especially when you read scripts, about principles and ideas that we could do. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about processes and methods and ideas of how to do it, and applying skills. So it's empowering the production, really.
So there's like a mixed array of work you've done, like Star Wars and Justice League, that has like a history and an aesthetic already, you could say. And then there's movies like Edge of Tomorrow, where there isn't really a precedent, it's a first film. What do you prefer? Do you have like having that free reign on design, or do you like having that, right, I've got this to look at, it gives me inspiration, I know what I'm going from, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's quite a good question, really. I think nowadays, I think you do. I love being challenged. I love that. I love the challenge of anything, and you can be challenged by something. And when we did Tarzan, we had to make fields of gunnery leaves and jungle weeds, etc. It's all very obvious what it is, but it was a massive challenge to be able to actually figure out how to do it. That was a great project in that context. Because it was very art directed, didn't need to be. We were just looking at the process of doing it. Whereas other things are much more open in their concept and their ideas about how they the Star Wars stuff, by example. Although there was the latest stuff, the costume stuff we did was very open ended about how things were going to look, and very debated. Enormous amount of conceptual work done on that, just to figure out what stuff was. And they all that comes with its own challenges, really, and they're all beneficial. And that variable is nice. Then getting stuck on, I do have the kind of the patience and the the patience of a toddler, really, just like to get bored with myself within minutes. So it's that's the industry indulges that that massive weakness in me very well, because it is different. I know whatever I'm doing this year, I'll be doing something completely different the next. And that's but back to your question about how I ended up getting these bigger gigs. I think you need to facilitate it, and I think people look at need people around them that can resolve problems, really, or resolve. Kill was interesting because they literally started. Edge of Tomorrow rather was literally started with a blank piece of paper, and although there'd been concepts done, they were really not. They didn't like them, basically, so they wanted to go to have a much more ground up feel to things, a much more realistic interpretation of what these things could be. And also Tom was absolutely adamant that it had to go in the camera as much as possible, not the other way around. So he was a massive driver on how we ended up doing it, really. Yeah.
But on another side of that, though, like you've recently been working on the upcoming Flash movie that's about to come out. Now, and as much as I want to say, tell me everything about this film, I'm going to resist. But how is that process of like going in and basically looking at work you've done in a previous film, because obviously you did the Flash costume for the Justice League, and then working on that same character's costume again for another movie, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think, well, we're, in the costume world, we're generally working under a costume designer. So the costume designer, by their nature, would always want to do something different than the previous costume designer has done anyway. It's trees close to dogs. You know what I mean? It's just like everyone wants to make it their tree. So, and that's a classic designer's thing. You want to stamp your mark in it, and that was definitely the case with Flash. But you needed to anyway. It's not, they were never going to do the Justice League. I mean, it's, DC are doing their world in a completely different way to the way Marvel have. There's an enormous amount of structure in the Avengers and all of that world. DC are trying to a more director driven, really, and more interpretational. Although Flash is trying to tie a lot of the previous concepts of the worlds together in a very novel and interesting way, really. But yeah, so there's a much more openness to changing things and allowing different generations of filmmakers to leave their proper mark on it.
So with going back to Harry Potter, because obviously that just blew up and became one of the biggest franchises probably ever. Like, what was it like working on those movies? Because then obviously you got to go on to Fantastic Beasts as well. So you've done every single movie in the Wizarding world, as Jamie said. So that must have been...
far.
So far.
I mean, that was an amazing job. I mean, it's the thing I talk about most, to be honest, the thing I get asked about most is the Potter series. And it was the thing I knew about probably least, I'd say, when I first started on it, because you get a phone call again. It was Neil Lamont, who had just done The World's Not Enough. We'd done all the little bomb boats on The World's Not Enough, and so Neil said, "Oh, I want to put you together." Oh no, he said, "Oh, come to a meeting up at Leavesden. Want to talk to you about prop making." So, and that was on the Monday, so I went and see him on the Thursday. And I got to Leavesden. There's a main building there, and at the top of it is an old control tower. When it was an aircraft factory and airstrip, I got in the bottom of it is a set of stairs, and I got to the bottom of the stairs and bumped into a guy called Mark Woolard, who was the prop maker on The World's Not Enough. So I was, it was just like, "Hi, Mark, what are you doing here?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm here to see Neil about the prop making." And I was just like, "Oh, 1 second, I'm here to see Neil about the prop making." And I was just like, "Oh no, some either Neil or some PA has cocked up the bookings, and I'm either myself or Mark probably needs to be here tomorrow or the day before." So anyway, we went up the stairs, and I didn't know Mark that well at that time. And Neil took us into their office and said, "Right, what I want to do is put the two of you together. I want to put, because we've got so much to do. I want Mark, I want you to run and I want you to run it jointly. And I was still, I was only 31, so I was still kind of good, but I didn't know Mark. And there was a lot of guys, you can imagine, a lot of guys that have been doing it a long time would have put their back up immediately. But Mark, who again now is one of my very closest colleagues and very close friend, was just amazing. We started the Monday after, and the first thing he said to me, he said before anything else, we sat down on the table and he said, before anything else, I'm really happy about this. I've got no problems with it. And between you and me, I'm going off to direct a series in 3 months' time, so it's going to be fine. He actually went and directed that series 5 years later. It took him 5 years to get that job, but he did eventually do it. But he was, and he's a great administrator, Mark, and it was fantastic because he just allowed me, he just supported me with all the just the general sort of bureaucracy of the department. Just allowed me to indulge myself completely on the Potters, certainly the first ones, and it kind of set a bar for how I go about things. Even now, really, I try and defer the bureaucracy as much as possible, just so I can concentrate on what we're really doing. But the Potters were the ultimate in that. I mean, we're weirdly at the moment we're remaking. I've set up a department. I've rattled it in the archive from Warner Brothers. We're remaking a lot of pieces that are going to be for a new studio tour in Japan. So remaking everything. I mean, pretty much like everything, like sand timers, brooms, wands. Stuff in the shops, just on and on, puking pastel with Weasley stuff, loads and loads of lovely stuff, and going back and looking at the original stuff again, researching and just remembering how we went about it. I was just like, I was mad. I was utterly mad. Properly, I would go off and find these amazing foundries up in Sheffield and places like that did these amazing castings and high-end castings that we were doing when we were doing Moody's Broom. Found this company called CTI that specialise in investment casting, but they're like a research and development company, quite a big concern there. They do a lot of military stuff and a lot of space, sort of stuff for satellites and loads of really amazing stuff. They have a facility to cast in titanium, and for some reason I thought this broom needs to be made of titanium. So I went and saw them, and they got so excited. They got just like, we're going to make a broom, stirrup broom. Yeah, God, that's amazing. Well, because they looked at the stirrup systems that we wanted to do, and it goes, well, we never really get to cast things like that. It's a really interesting shape for us, and it's just like fantastic. So they pretty much did it. I know they did it at cost. I think they actually did it at a loss. Anyway, so we've done some other brooms with high-end aluminiums. These aluminiums that are just they're so strong, I mean, crazy, heat tempered and heat treated, high-grade aluminiums that you'd find in aircraft and God knows what else. And this went to them about, because they had this titanium casting facility, about doing Moody's Broom titanium, and So they took them. We made the waxes. So investment casting is you make a wax former that you then a ceramic coat. You melt the wax out and you fill what the ceramic is, which is a plaster with the metal, baked. Make it very simply. And titanium's it's an incredible material. The physics involved in casting titanium is just unbelievable. I love it. It's absolutely incredible. But you have a crucible. But titanium, when it's molten, is so corrosive that it will eat through any crucible, any of the ceramic crucibles that they generally use. So what they do is they have a copper ring that is super cooled. So it's heated. It's weird. It's heated, but also chilled. They have this massive system, water chilling system, that chills it. So what happens is when the titanium is molten in the middle of it, when it touches the surface, it goes hard. So it creates its own crucible, weirdly.
That's amazing.
But of course, that's
awesome.
fine on the side of the water. What do you do with the bottom, where the weight going bottom? So you can't have a bottom to the crucible. So they have a magnetic coil that holds the titanium in suspension while it's heating up. And then basically when they come to pour it, they turn it off and it just falls into a big funnel filled with molten. It's unbelievable. And they now, that titanium system was casting 100 kilos. They now have 1,000 kilo system that I haven't seen, but it's just incredible. Anyway, so I think it was Paul, I think the guy who was running the job for me, phoned me up one morning and said, I'm really worried about the flow rate on these couple of these pieces. Would you mind if I just change the spec slightly on the titanium? And I was just like, well, it's titanium, isn't it? It's just like there's more than one type. There's a plethora of different tweaked formulas over blended alloys of it. And I said, yeah, fine, you go. And he goes, well, what I'm going to do is we've got this special. We've got a special batch of titanium that I think I can borrow a little bit off it, use it for yours, and they won't miss it. It'll be fine. So yeah, fine, okay. Anyway, so we did the job, filmed the film, and 12 months later I went back up there to film the next film. He was doing some other bits for us. And I saw Paul again, and how are you doing? Yeah. And he goes, everything right? And he goes, yeah, got in a bit of trouble. You remember that titanium we bought? Yeah. And he goes, well, I slightly miscalculated and I used a bit too much of the titanium, and we didn't have enough for the job that we were doing for it. And it delayed the project by about 6 months. I go, oh my God, that's awful. And he goes, can you tell me which one it was? And he goes, yeah, it's a Joint Strike Fighter. He delayed the Joint Strike Fighter, the making of it, by the whole project by 6 months. The whole European fighter by 6 months for making a fucking broom.
That's nuts. I was going to ask you what your favourite prop you worked on the Harry Potter series, but I think that was the answer there. Mad Eye Moody's broom.
Oh no! That was just another day. I mean, it was. I mean, there was so much that we did, and I always get asked that, and it's just like I don't know because every prop we made there's memories in each prop. You know, when I go through around the archive or the studio tour, and you see the stuff that's there and the stuff that we're pulling out in the moment. For me, it's remembering the processes of going through, and again the guys, the team that I put together there, so many of them we still work together now. And we had an absolute ball, and it was a very insular experience in certain ways. We were very click, and we had, we were just enjoying it, just actually reveling in the opportunity of all these different channels that we're getting, working with this probably the premier production designer of his generation. Similar for the set decorator, a great art department team, a great production team, great technicals, prop guys, the effects guys, all the way through. And we all knew each other very well. We were there and it just became very like a family, like a factory environment in the best senses. Just everyone, it was just gentle. We were given enough time to be able to do things properly. And a great story, and just an amazing, imaginative story to turn into a visual thing. Amazing. Is
that what made you want to do like all the other films as well? Because it's just so unique and such an amazing story. It's just like, I had a whale of a time, I'm coming back.
Well, it's weird. I think you like anything, you crave change, like I said before. And I think we were lucky we were able to do jobs in between. It's not like we did Potter straight for 10 years. Weirdly, I did 10 years exactly on Potter. I started on the 21st of June 2000, and my pass stopped working. I got sacked on the 21st of June 2010. Frankly, for some reason, just a stupid little fact there. Yeah, don't get excited.
My pass stopped working. I got sacked. I like that. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. But which. And it was, as I say, it's a cornerstone, but it was also part of the journey with us, and that's what I'm saying is a lot of the guys that I work with there, we carried on, we carried on doing other films and other projects, and by that point, we were empowered by what we'd learned in that 10 years. Didn't waste a cent at that time, And I think it became a very creatively powerful unit, really. So you apply it to other things, and that was exciting. I think, as much as Pots are lovely, but I think at the time we were ready to move on and do stuff. I think that's because we didn't. That's the excitement. It's a about the project. So we got off doing Gravity and obviously Kill Kiss Chemist after that, and all the things after that.
So do you find yourself with movies now then, if that you haven't worked on, where you see a prop and go, I wouldn't have done that. I'd have made that. I wouldn't have done that either.
Oh, yeah. No one's as good as me. No, definitely.
Well,
they're all idiots. Which idiot made that? I won't say it was one of mine. No, I mean, that's the lovely thing, is that you just like I love seeing people's interpretation about how to go about things. I think filmmaking is quite tough because we do it nowadays, I think, in comparison to those times, and because the time pressures are so tight now, and you really just only given an opportunity just to get over the line. You're not given a chance to really bring things to the fore. And I'm always constantly fighting with just trying to do things in my mind properly, in the sense of just well enough. It's one of the downsides of this ever increasing scale that's the modern scenario now. But
are there any props you've had to work on in your career that have been an absolute nightmare to do, but then when you've done it, you've been like, that was worth it. That looks absolutely amazing.
Well, I mean, back to Kill, I never got the chance to do it. I think I was just popped out the other side of it, but I did want to give as a crew gift for my crew rose tinted spectacles for everybody, because it was just at the time it's probably one of my. It's an experience that I treasure because it was such a filming experience, and I was so much more exposed to the machinations of filmmaking than I generally am. I was a second employee in the UK on the job after the producer. He pulled me in because we started these things 26 weeks out or whatever, but didn't actually start making them until 12 weeks out. And just the journey of those suits and the terrifying aspect of having to produce 80 suits. And I think we had 7 weeks. My crew got up to 168 people at one point. It was just enormous. So it was just these scenarios that I honestly don't, I don't know how we did it, how we all did it. Just brilliant people. Surround yourself by amazing people, and you can get away with these things. Just kind of what happened, but yeah.
I seem to remember hearing before, correct me if I'm wrong, that apparently the Goblet of Fire, like the actual goblet, was a massive pain in the arse. Is that right? Something to do with
that was a joy. No, that was lovely. No, I loved doing it. I pulled rank on that. Myself and a guy called Spike Knight carved that. So occasionally I would make things. I'd make things very rarely now. You never get the chance, to properly sit down and do it. But the Potters, I was still occasionally doing stuff, and the beginning of that was just like, no, 1 second, I'm doing that. The funny thing was, before I started the film, I thought, oh, it's going to be it would be some massive gilded piece, maybe with a kind of a shell, some weird animal shell top. I don't know what I was thinking. And of course, Stuart just came up with this concept, and I remember getting a drawing, and it just rolled out and hit the floor and rolled from this 6-foot high cup, and go, he's done it again. I didn't think that again. And it was just, I found this amazing piece of, in one of the timber traders that we found, this whole trunk of Mexican rosewood, which I got in, or bought and took to Stuart, and I thought, oh look, this would be incredible to do the whole, and he really liked it, but he just said after, and he'd take a while to think about things, and he goes, it's nice, but no, I want to go and get a piece of English elm, do it out of a piece of English elm. So I found obviously that's a challenge, finding a trunk of English elm, but I found a dealer down in just outside of Dover that had a whole trunk of English elm that we just bought, stood in the middle of the workshop, and myself and a guy called Spike Knight, a wonderful model maker, we just carved it out of a single piece of wood, basically.
That's amazing.
Bliss, absolutely bliss. Yeah. No, so that wasn't a nightmare.
That's absolutely amazing. My wife actually, I was telling my wife I was talking to, she's a huge Harry Potter fan. I was like, have you got any questions you want me to put to him? She was like, I tell you what, I do want to know. Has he ever like?
Don't know who. Oh, go on.
Has he ever seen like a prop on set and been like, I want that. I want a souvenir.
Oh. Fill your pockets, boys.
Yeah, correct.
Obviously, and Warners are so hot on that, on all of that. Sort of, you cannot have anything. Feeling, and it's a museum, you know, and they've got all that, and you know, some of the props owned by Simon Wilkinson and all the stuff. I remember was constantly trying to stop the actors from pocketing stuff, but they were really hot. And Roy Button, who was the head of Warner Productions, very famous. He's retired. Well, he's retired from Warner's. Incredible film character. The reason, one of the main cornerstone reasons that the industry is how it is now is because of Roy. But he was constantly having to phone up, I don't know, Jason Isaac or something like that, just saying. I think you'll find something's going to reappear in your changing room tomorrow morning. Yeah, because they're all wizards. Yeah, so it's yeah, but it was great because there's a passion. You know, no one wants to nick crap, do they? I mean, it's the biggest compliment to have people trying to pilfer your stuff.
So you turn around, what you can't see behind you's got a drawer full of golden snitches, wands, fucking name it. Yeah,
exactly. At the end of this, obviously, we can have a conversation. No, all of my job's worth, Governor.
Okay,
yeah, but it's, you know, it's a constant, you know, I constantly get asked about making stuff for people, so that's lovely. Yeah, maybe one day. But what was I saying? I've lost my track now. What's I saying about prop making? I've gone off. Yeah,
gone off. Well, obviously, just realising the time, we will start to wrap up now. But I did want to ask that, working on as many amazing projects you've worked on, do you have any particular props for your whole career that you're like, I'm so proud of that? How the hell did I pull that off? Like, real career highlight, you could say.
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? I need to put up my IMDb because I'm at the stage now and I've completely forgotten some things that I've done. And oh my God, that's like 12 months of my life. How can I not remember that? So yeah, there is the other extreme of gentle senility kicking in. You know, there is great collective efforts. You know, Kiel, we've talked about just pulling that off, bringing that off to such a scale. I loved the Tarzan and the gunner relief. Was something I always wanted to do, was to do plants and really, you know, the physics of plants is incredible. So I love doing that. Gravity was incredibly interesting in a technical sense, and to be given, you know, started off from David Heyman telling me that really wasn't anything for me, and 2-3 weeks later telling me could I make a couple of small elements to, within 2 months, having 80 people making costumes and set pieces and God knows what else for that. But seeing the technical complexity, be involved in a film that's so technically leading edge like that was amazing. And Alfonso as well, who's always a journey. Very tough director to work for, but tough, but good. You know, you suffer the pain for the product if it's that standard, and he's definitely one of those. Yeah, and then I remember as soon as we finish this, there'll be something I go, oh my God, I forgot all about that. You know, I mean, the Dark Knight suit was another one that we went about it in a different way than any of those suits have ever been made before. It always came from much more of a creature based. I mean, we came at it from a totally different angle, and that really led into us doing, you know, being involved in all the future costume jobs that we did after that. Was really from that, and so that was I'm very proud of it as well. You know, it's again an amazing collective work, an amazing design by Lindy Hamming, and just learning that whole other part of the industry. You know, we were very much more prop making by that point, and so to be given that chance, it's an important job. Yeah, but
it's amazing. So What are you working on? Anything at the moment that you can tell us about? Obviously, I imagine there's a lot of red tape and hush hush, but is there anything you can tell us?
Well, no, I can talk about what I'm doing. I just can't. I can't give away the obvious bits and bobs, really. But no, we're working on Meg 2 with Jason Stratham and the guys are there. So we're doing some incredible dive suits. So they are a little bit Kill-esque in these mechanized dive suits that they go very deep underwater with. They've got the opportunity of making some proper dive helmets as well, which I've wanted to do for many years, which has been great fun. We also just started on Barbie with Margot Robbie. We've got some prop making too with that, and that's some lovely mad thing. Great script, very clever, very funny, very I think it'll be a very very entertaining film when it comes to. So yeah, doing that for the summer. Involved in another studio tour for Warner Brothers and Harry Potter for Tokyo, so that's exciting too, and yeah, and see what the phone does. Really, I'm actually, as I say, because of wonderful relaxing time I had at lockdown, maybe trying to get a month off to try and get sensation back in my feet again.
Tom, have you got any more questions before we wrap up?
I mean, you've worked on some of the biggest franchises in filmmaking history, like Bond, Star Wars, Marvel, Harry Potter, etc. Did you ever think that like your life would ever get to where it is today? Did you ever think this is where you'd be at?
No. Honestly, the majority of my life has just really been. I know what I'm doing for the next week. I've certainly when I was younger, I was standing at a train station in Wimbledon with not enough fare to get back home. It's just like we all would. It's life's a funny old thing, and I can be honest in saying that I never conceived of where at the time I would never have conceived of being where I am now. But then I never would have conceived the industry being the way it is now. It's a reactive thing,
yeah.
And I work in an industry where I think if you want a career, you have to be reactive to it. You can't control it. You have to facilitate what people require, rather than try and say I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And it's it's the joy of discovery for me. My deepest joy is in the process of making things. Is the product, is something at the end of the day that we can be judged by. And I love that process, because however much flack and criticism and hard work comes in the process, at the end of the day, the proof is always in the pudding. It's always there, and I love that. Films are. I don't make films. I make things for films, and for anything else that people. That's how I look at it. So it's whatever people do with the stuff that we make, the toys that we make, so to speak. That's up to them. But for me, it's the opportunity of making these incredibly diverse objects and costumes and things and ideas, and facilitating that is just a massive privilege.
Yeah. And yet someone told you weren't intelligent enough to be a vet, and now fucking look at you.
Exactly. Still wear rubber gloves sometimes though.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. I've had an absolute whale of a time talking to my friend.
Fantastic. No, ditto. It's great to meet you guys too.
Yeah,
I would love at some point to be able to get you back on and maybe like deep dive some of these movies, deep dive the Potter movies, just like proper get into some of the nitty gritty stuff.
I'm always happy to make stuff up for you.
Love it. Before we let you go, though, would you like to play our little quick fire game? It's 5 questions, and you answer them as quick as you can. It's very easy.
There's no forfeit if I lose, is there?
No.
Well, as the questions are all about you, I'd be quite concerned if you didn't know the answers. To be
Let me surprise you yet again.
Quick fire round. Question number 1. What is your favourite pizza topping?
I do like a sausage. You can't beat a sausage.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great answer.
I think that's a first of hand of that one as well.
And an egg. And an egg. People don't do that. But
Egg?
they can get,
Really?
oh my God. If you go to Italy, proper one, if they could put an egg in the middle, and it's amazing because when they cook the pizza properly, it's cooked in the time enough for it to cook an egg in the middle.
Oh my days.
Yeah.
You just blow Tom's mind.
Yeah. If you go into if you're in Venice or something like that, there's somewhere where they do just like the best. If you see a restaurant that one of them or two of them do have an egg in the middle, then you know you're in a good pizza restaurant.
I like it.
Yeah.
If you were to have a movie about your life, who would play you?
Well, they're all dead probably now, aren't they? Oh God, yeah, Eric Morecambe. That'd be good.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Only could he do that gig with the glasses. I don't wear glasses. He could just like put his glasses on the knee. That'd be me. Yeah.
Oh.
I was like,
What is
maybe
your...
Bridget Bardot. Maybe, yeah.
Why not?
See if she can pull it off. Go on, grow a beard.
What is your favourite joke to tell?
I heard one that maybe if you don't mind something that's slightly coarse. 1 second.
Well, no,
Hang on.
They're the best ones.
Yeah.
Hang on, caller. 1 second. I've got to remind myself. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. God, he's there. I know you're there. There we go. This is Bob. Bob has no arms. Knock, knock. Who's there? Well, it ain't fucking Bob, is it?
Fuck's sake. Oh, that's amazing. What is your Hogwarts house? I've added this one just for you.
Oh, well, I've been touched up by a hat twice in my life. I've been sorted twice. Once was Slytherin and once was Gryffindor. Although I do prefer the Slytherin. I quite like people that go in and make promises that they can barely keep. I think that's good.
And
Never get out in Gryffindor.
That's very true. Last but not least, if you were to get in a time machine and give one piece of advice to young Master Bohanna, what would it be?
Never look backwards. Just keep running.
Incredible. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been so much fun. Before we let you go, are there any plugs, social medias, anything you want people to go check out?
Yeah, please don't come and knock on my door of my house. Don't.
I know we don't want your home address.
No. But don't do any searches of the name. The stories there are not true. It's just not. None of it is true. I never did those things.
I haven't even been here for the last hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
that was Bridget Bardot.
it's only you saying that I haven't. There's proof that I was. Oh, in this video, of course. Mr. Boris can get away with it. I can.
I think that's some cheese and wine.
I was going to say the cheese and wine's off camera. It's fine.
Fantastic. That's what I'm doing for the whole hour before this, isn't it?
Incredible. Thank you so much, my friend. We've had an absolute whale of a time talking to you.
No, it's a pleasure. And good luck with whoever you're interviewing next.
We massively appreciate it. Pierre, thank you so much again, sir. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. But have a great evening, Pierre. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much.
I hope we didn't. Yeah, I hope we didn't wake the kids up.
Nah, she's fine.
Yeah, all good. No, there was no little ginger head running around, so we're all good.
No, fine.
The drugs work then. Sweet dreams. All right, guys.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Jamie. Do you like being cozy?
I do.
And do you like staying cozy?
I like that even more.
Then just heading over to www.staycozyclothing.com,
where you can find hoodies, tees, sweaters, and much, much more.
And just enter The Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
And make sure you follow them on the Instagram at Stay Cozy Clothing to keep up to date with all the new designs.
Remember, guys, that's The Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And now back to this week's episode.
I liked that.
Thank you. I thought it gave an extra bit of zhuzh to his surname. We like a bit of zhuzh.
We love a bit of
Chronicles of
zhuzh.
Podcast.
We do.
So we needed a little bit of zhuzh to the interview. So.
And that interview itself was a barrel full of zhuzh. Pierre has so many amazing stories. I absolutely loved that one.
It was great. It was absolutely great. So hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to it as really recording it. And Pierre, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to us. We really do appreciate it. As we know how much of a bizarre man that you are doing all these movies, all these fingers in many pies, boys.
Hey there. I'm Frank Guglielmelli, and I'm the narrator for the audio drama feed, featuring such audio dramas as Bounty Hunters, Marty and Mars, Val Toby, and so much more. You can find all of these wonderful programs on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or you can go to our website at www.audiodramafeed.com. We are thrilled to be affiliated with the Chronicles of Podcast with Tom and Jamie.